it needs to be it needs to create, which brings me to
Yeah.
another thing, no, the creator economy, and nothing wrong with that. But now people think that if you create something, you need to put it out there and show it to the world and make money of it, and get
Yeah.
sponsors and put a YouTube channel, and all those things are fine. But you also need a space that is for you, set for you.
Welcome to the New World Podcast, where we delve into the ever changing and accelerating pace of global change and its impact on our lives. I'm your host, John Paul Flores, broadcasting live from the New World Studio. Today, we're diving into the world of AI and automation. As an enthusiast and expert in lead generation, I will guide you through understanding and leveraging these technologies for your business and for your personal use. And don't forget, AI and automation might be unstoppable forces, but that doesn't mean you are powerless. Tune in to learn how to make them work for you and not the other way around. But first, let's meet our guest.
Okay, let's start.
Welcome to the New World Podcast, where we navigate the changing world around us. I'm your host, Jampo Flores, specializing in lead generation AI automation, here to help you understand how our world is changing and what it means for you. In this episode, we have Johann, a visionary in the realm of personal development and transpersonal growth. He's here to share his unique approach to self discovery through journaling, AI, and aligning with our true selves. Johann dives deep into how the process of reconnecting with our inner voice can transform both our personal lives and the way we approach challenges. And please keep in mind the word reconnecting because we should be connected to it all the time. Now, tune in as we explore how journaling and reflection can lead to profound breakthroughs and meaningful alignments to the world increasingly shaped by technology. Johan, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's my pleasure to be in here, and those are very kind words. I really appreciate it. So, thanks a lot for that.
By the way, before we begin in the in-depth questions, because I do have some, do you mind giving us a quick intro on who Johan is? What's your
All right.
expertise, experiences, and what keeps you busy these days?
Yeah, for sure. So I have been working on marketing for like 8 years of my life. During the pandemic, I was isolated for 2 months. I was living alone, and at the beginning of the pandemic, it was very rough for me, uh, because we couldn't move from when I was living. We weren't able to actually get out. So I started to have a lot of alone time, like many people in the world, and that kind of forced me to start looking at what was my career, where was I heading, and it actually reignited an interest uh, for psychology in my part. I was always curious. I got into marketing because I was mm, super curious about how can you do a stuff to make people do something, like make something appealing and make
Yeah,
something like a railroad that people take step
yeah,
one, step two. So that was really fascinating for me. It's always fascinating for me, and that is rooted in a profound curiosity of who we are and what we do as human beings.
yeah,
My father and my mother are MDs, are
yeah,
physicians, so health and us as human beings were always topics that we discussed in my
yeah,
household. So I had that background, and from that time I started to look to some courses, some
yeah.
seminars, some lectures from a lot of people, of organizations, and I stumbled on the work of Carl Gustav Jung,
Oh, yeah.
and depth psychology. And it was game changer for me.
yeah,
at so many levels. It has been a game changer for me at so many levels. And I've been since in a journey of uh, discovering parts of myself.
yeah,
As I will recommend anybody do. We have, I think, we have this image of to in order to discover yourself, you have to travel to India and meet with a
yeah,
guru, and or maybe have some ayahuasca or a very intricate and mystical and ritualistic journey, and that could be the case.
yeah,
It could also be the case that you start paying attention of what is happening in your life and the images and the symbols that comes from that, and that was
yeah,
mine. And I started to take notes from
yeah,
that, and I started at the very beginning doing some notes on my phone with
yeah,
no real discipline on it. Just when it came, I put it, and some year passes, and I
yeah,
started to specialize with the theory of Jung with some organizations in Argentina, and I started attending a lot of more specialist courses, like in order to deeply understand what I was
yeah,
actually trying to do. I started going to a Jungian analyst, which I will also recommend. So in that structure that I was creating, I find myself doing journaling
yeah,
and doing journaling, and the person that brings journaling to my life, like a practice, it was my wife. Like she started doing it basically every day, and
yeah,
I was so curious about it because I saw that it has an impact on her day, and for me it
true,
was like mind blowing, and I got curious, and I began to wonder in myself, what happened if I do this? Like,
yeah,
what happened if I take all my knowledge, I take all what I know, I take my journey, I take and I start doing this that I see that a loved one is doing, what
yeah,
will come from it, and what it came from it, and what it has come from it, it's a very powerful way to
yeah.
bring soul out in a world that is very much automated,
A
full,
soulless world.
soulless world. I will use disenchanted.
Yeah,
Yeah, like we all, as long as we are in the world, which I believe so, the soul is there, no, but it is
yeah,
disenchanted. Like we have lost some kind of thing,
yeah,
or we put it in the other image, the thing of the guru in the India, of the
yeah.
shaman in the in the forest, or Siberia, or whatever. So that is my background. That is my background for sure.
Personally, I never got the point of people traveling across the world to get to know themselves. Because, I think the main problem with that is, if they want to do it. I don't care. But,
Right.
the main problem is that you're getting to know yourself when you're traveling, the person who travels. But when you go home, you're a different you. So, what's going to happen then?
Right. Right. Unless you are actually paying attention.
Yeah,
Like if you go to and I believe that it connects with the theme that we just talked about, disenchantment. Like if
yeah,
you go to an ancient temple in Greece, or a very antique church in any part of the world, and you just take the face value of it, that maybe it's a beautiful place, maybe it's
yeah,
an ancient place, and you just take your phone and take the photo, and just record the video, and maybe do something for your loved one
yeah,
in social media. I wouldn't know if that actually helps you stay in the presence and
yeah,
of that place, and maybe extract something from it. So that's something that we do with our life every day. You don't
yeah,
need to travel to an ancient temple in order to experience that. You could just, when you're commuting to your workplace, if you are, maybe you see something that
yeah,
caught your attention, and for a moment you pay attention to that. That's what journaling does. Journaling, if done right, it demands you to pay attention to the present. It demands you
yeah,
to, for, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just stay in the presence with you.
yeah,
Some people do that easily. Some people have uh, difficulties doing that. For sure, we all have different personalities,
yeah,
but the tool is there. The tool for you to be present, it's there.
yeah. So as you mentioned, you started first doing journaling because you saw your wife do it and you saw some profound changes. So it's actually, big enough changes for someone to notice.
Yes, yes, for sure. Like if you start talking with
Yeah,
yourself in a way, like we all talk with ourselves. Like there's many people that have told me, when I go to
yeah,
sleep at night, I'm immediately buzzed by my thoughts, right? And I'm having trouble sleeping because
yeah,
it comes like an very black cloud, a stormy cloud of
yeah,
thoughts. So what happened if those that same hour that you were gonna be plagued by thoughts,
yeah,
you put it on a journal and you process that.
yeah,
So instead of being your mind telling you or reminding you stuff, you get a chance to have a conversation. You get a chance to, and
yeah,
don't get me wrong. There's people that do that with therapy, whatever therapy works for them, and that's good. That's okay. And you also have this. You also have this. And nobody's gonna read your journal. You could write the most
yeah,
nefarious, dark, and horrible thing that you wouldn't say out loud, and you put it there, and that will have some effect on you. Because for a
yeah.
moment, you're going to say, whoa, I
These are
feel
my
this way.
thoughts.
My thoughts.
Yeah, because when it's just thoughts, you just say that, hey, yeah, I don't care, so I'm not just gonna go towards that thought. But when you
No,
write it down, you have no choice.
you have no choice. You have no choice. And I mean, there is this psychologist called James Pennebaker, which he actually, I will say that he started studying journaling as a way, as a tool for self healing. I will use that word. And he put all the focus and the mind of science on this, and he found out that there is there seems to be no difference if you write with a pencil and a paper or if you write on your phone. Like,
Huh.
there's no significant difference. Okay, and I will have experienced myself that maybe something happens to me that, and some thoughts come to my mind, and maybe if I just put it down quickly, I
Yeah,
can deal with that just quickly in that moment because I don't have my pen, or I'm not in my house,
yeah,
or wherever, right? Or my notebook. But I will suggest that if you commit to writing to a notebook, right, at hand, you are putting your body in the situation, right?
yeah,
And we also know that when you fully concentrate, you put your body onto doing
yeah,
things. It's hard to do anything else but the
yeah,
thing that you're doing. You when you look at people studying mental health and physical
yeah,
training, there is a correlation between, it helps you, not only
yeah,
because of the biochemistry that is involved in that, but also because you are focusing on something, and
yeah,
and get a chance to maybe clear your mind. I'm gonna air quote this because
yeah,
the same concept doesn't apply to anybody, but it's a universal concept enough
yeah,
that we can relate to. Maybe I'm sad, so I take a walk. Maybe I'm sad and I go for a run. Maybe I'm super happy and I go to take a
yeah,
run because I have so many energy
yeah,
and you know, it's the same if you commit to writing.
yeah.
It's very much
I
the
think
same,
there
you know.
was a study that was done for university students where they actually remember more of what they're studying if they write it down compared to when they type it on a keyboard.
Yes, because yes, yes,
Yeah, because there's more. I think there's more effort. That's why you remember it more because you're genuinely expanding energy when you're writing it.
yes, that is correct. I can't recall the
Yeah,
study name right now, but I know the study that you're referring, and
yeah,
for sure, what that paper says is that when you are concentrating all your body, all your mind on doing something, it has a different effect than when
yeah,
you're just interacting with the digital world. That's
yeah,
not to say that the digital world is bad. That that doesn't translate to that. It's just to say that there is a tool in using your body, in using your
yeah,
connection to actually help you have a conversation with
yeah,
something that some will call the autonomous one within. There is something within every one of us that, it doesn't obey ego.
yeah,
And ego being this thing that how we perceive ourselves
yeah,
and the vision that we have on ourselves. So there's, and everybody have experienced something like,
yeah,
why did I say that? Where did that come from? You know? And and when you start doing a practice, generally being one that I will recommend, where you start having a conversation with that part of your, you start understanding yourself
yeah,
better and understanding where your energy is placed, your psychic
yeah.
energy is placed.
You know,
So
plus if you write it on a notebook, that's a physical representation of your thoughts.
yes, exactly.
No, I think I promised to you that I was gonna start journaling when we last talked, and
Okay,
I didn't still, because
you
I
didn't.
don't know why. Yeah, I think there's a barrier where there's these things that I know that I shouldn't do and I haven't done, but there's just the shame of it because I didn't do those things, and yeah, it's hard, it's painful, genuinely. If you need to write it, right? I don't know if other people experience that, but yeah, it's shameful if you need to write things down that that you have been doing.
So, so what you're saying is that what has been a barrier for you is
Yeah,
that when you know that if you sit down to write, you're gonna write some things that maybe you regret not doing.
yeah, and the things that I've done that I'm regretting.
Right.
Yeah,
So 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 actually, Pennebaker it goes very well because what he will say and what he has discovered in his study is that when we write down something about an event like
yeah,
this and we get to reshape the significance of that event, we find out that we were not seeing, let's say, the
yeah,
benefit from that event. Like the prompt will be something like, so today it's January and
yeah,
I'm writing this to be honest that I regret doing this and that, or that I feel shameful
yeah,
about this and that. And after you take that
yeah,
out, the next thing that you will write will be what good has come from that. What good has come from that? And maybe that good is just, I know that if I don't do this, I feel bad.
yeah,
And that simple line maybe clarify, and, we're speculating, I don't know what you're going to write, but
yeah,
uh, that simple line will help you actually understand what is making you feel what is making you feel the way, and
yeah,
you could just after that say, what stops me from doing this now? What are
hmm,
the things in my life that stop me? So it's just a question game.
yeah,
It's putting out there the questions that you know that some. Did you know that you're asking those questions? But
absolutely.
it comes from like this voice right here, that, and it's just a whisper, and you're like, yeah, don't bother me right now. But if you write it, it's there. You're
Yeah,
like it's there. You need to address that. Like you
yeah,
will have the need to address that. That's what I mean. So I will 100% recommend, and nobody's gonna read it. You know, nobody's
yeah,
gonna know. It's a secret that you get to keep to yourself, but also you get
yeah,
to resolve probably by yourself. Maybe you need help, but maybe at the end of the sessions you realize I need help with this. I cannot solve this on my own. I need
yeah.
to look to somebody that helps me with this for whatever reason. So
So you basically become your own therapist.
I will, yes,
Yeah,
what
if you
but
ask the right questions on yourself.
and you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah,
And we were talking about Jung, right? So Jung will say that in each of us there is this archetype of force. You know,
yeah,
those these primordial images that we all
yeah,
have, and that we all deal with it at some point. And when I will say, when you start having conversations with yourself, it's easier to notice which archetypes are emerging from
yeah,
within, and if you're
yeah,
able to constellate the archetype of the healer, which
yeah,
we all have, then you start
yeah,
searching for the therapist within. But all therapy comes like, and Jung says this, he says something that is consciousness. I'm gonna butcher this quote, but it's something like
yeah.
consciousness comes from pain.
Huh.
You cannot skip pain. Like the real consciousness, the real aha, whoa, it comes from something that maybe you didn't like about yourself, or maybe you got it wrong about yourself, and that's good, because you're gonna find in life, everybody have find this in life, that if you if you think of yourself something that is not accurate, that
Yeah.
is not true, somebody's gonna show that to you.
Huh. Well, can you
Like,
explain that more?
yeah, so maybe you think you're the most tech savvy person in the
Yeah.
room, okay? And you put yourself in this square.
Yeah.
I'm the most tech savvy man or woman in the room, and nobody can actually beat me to it. And you, I'm sorry, I don't know. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah,
Mike, did we get cut off? Can you hear me?
okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, yeah. Sure, please continue.
Yeah, so I was saying, so maybe you have this perception of yourself,
Yeah.
of being the most tech savvy person in the room, and nobody can be more tech savvy than you,
Yeah.
and you're gonna put yourself in a situation where your tech savvy is needed, and let's say that maybe that situation at some point you cannot solve, you don't know how to solve it, and
Huh.
somebody
Yeah.
else comes and solve the situation, and maybe even tells you, it was really easy. It was just one, two, three. That's gonna destroy you. That's gonna destroy you.
Yeah.
There's no way. So that's gonna have an impact on yourself, on your ego. So instead of letting the other telling you that, yes, you're very tech savvy, but maybe you
You're at
are
the best.
lacking in some aspect. You can do that to yourself. Like, hey,
Yeah.
yes, I'm very tech savvy, but I realize that maybe I'm not very. I don't have a lot of expertise in this part,
Yeah.
or whatever. No, but you need to be honest with yourself, and journaling helps you to start being with
Yeah.
yourself.
For someone who is genuinely disconnected with themselves to the point that they actually know that they are, how would you advise that? How could they genuinely generate the curiosity to actually learn more about themselves?
Okay, so let's say that you get to a point in your life that you know you're not connected
Yeah,
with yourself, right? And you want to change that. I will suggest that start analyzing the analyzing is not a good word. Recording the end of your day. Like at the
yeah,
end of the day, start writing what was your date about. Like
yeah,
not the things that you did. Like imagine you're describing a movie or a TV episode to
yeah,
somebody. And it doesn't matter if it was the most boring episode ever. Like
yeah,
I just woke up. I'm unemployed. I went and did some grocery. Then I came home and I play some video games, and then I doom scroll all day, and now I'm sleepy, and now I'm tired, and now I'm whatever. Like
yeah.
it doesn't matter. Just write that down. Write that
Yeah.
down. Write your experience. Write your experience with that.
So So basically, if you write down the end of your day, maybe at some point of time, you'll actually generate the curiosity to the point that you would be asking yourself why I actually did those.
Right? Because if you do the same thing for 3 days in a
Yeah,
row, you're gonna start asking yourself, why do I do this?
yeah,
No, I'm doing this to just you stop being an spectator in your own life.
yeah. Can
Spectator
become a
in
writer.
your and right. You start being the script writer of your life. You could say,
Yeah,
and you start doing like, hey, why started, why I always doom scroll, or
yeah,
why I went and did the groceries and I don't know, it just came home. Why I didn't walk? Why I didn't put myself out there, start talking with people or whatever. So I will suggest that that will be a way to start for sure. That
right.
will be a way to start, and maybe you get curious about a particular subject and start doing that. I will
Yeah,
also, as this is more a personal recommendation, start reading Stoics. So Seneca, Mark
yeah,
Aurelius. I will start reading those because it's gonna have it's gonna have an impact on
yeah,
perceiving what you can control and what you cannot control. And that was actually the way I started. So I
yeah,
have a book with Stoic quotes, and when I
yeah,
started, I took the book and read a quote
yeah,
and started writing what I was thinking or feeling about that quote. And by the fourth day, I was just grabbing a notebook and writing. Like I didn't need the book to address some stuff. I was just writing. So, and maybe Stoics are not for you, but just find something that you're generally interested. Like it piques your curiosity, and start writing about that,
yeah,
and how it makes you feel. How can you relate?
yeah,
Uh, if it makes you angry, if it
yeah,
makes you sad, if it makes you happy, if even if you think it's BS, like if you think it's BS, write it down and explain the why.
yeah. Why do you think it's BS?
But yeah, I think this is BS because in my life I have been and at some point you're gonna be like, maybe I got this wrong, or maybe I don't need to think about it this way. Eventually, we are curious beings. Like
Yeah,
we are wired in a way that we are curious.
that's
So
why
I don't.
we doom scroll.
That's why we do this. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know this, but there is a book that is called. I will send it to you. I don't know if you put notes on the podcast, but
Yeah.
because I could misremember the name in English, but it's something like why do we see colors, or why do we see how we see. It's a very interesting book about how the human eye started to evolve to perceive more colors because we were searching for snakes. So our ancestors were like, where's the snake? And that translated to being beings that search for patterns. And that's in us, in everyone else. We're looking for patterns. We're looking for stuff. We're always searching for something. Yes, for sure. If you use that to doom scroll, you're gonna feel tired at some point. But if you start wondering what it's around you,
Yeah.
inside you, it's gonna hit different. I promise.
You also mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, a soul in the era of AI.
Yes.
How does AI actually affect our soul, or at least our consciousness?
Right. So what I believe is that AI, the main advantage that have is releasing a lot of our time. Like I said at the beginning, I work in marketing, so for sure, if it takes me 15 minutes to come up with a bunch of ideas for a website or a product or whatever, instead of 2 hours or 3 hours, I have a lot of free time to do a lot of stuff. So there is a part of us that is focused on optimization, automatization,
Yeah.
and AI helps us with that. What do we do with our free time? What can I use my writing skills right now?
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't have to be writing. Maybe it can be art. The first, what I find fascinating is that the first real discussion on internet about AI and protest uh, were about artists that were saying you're stealing my job, like you're stealing my work, you're
Yeah.
stealing the things that I do, and people were angry about it. And at some point, somebody realized that AI art was bad and it was soulless.
Yeah.
You could spot it a mile away. And we have a lot of improvements since then, a lot of new technologies, a lot of stuff. But people actually realize when something is AI made quickly
Yeah.
because it lacks something.
Yeah. But you can picture it. You can put into words what's lacking, but you just see it.
You just see it. You just like, oh, this is weird. It has 5 fingers and
Yeah.
all the teeth and whatever. But it's weird. And that's not
Yeah.
to say that AI is bad. No, it's just to say that we understand when it's something it's made by humans. We have been seeing human art and human works from for a long time. So it's gonna take a time in order to AI caught up with that,
Yeah.
if ever. But
Yeah. Or we just need to wait out the new generation.
maybe
Yeah.
right. But what we also have, it's a world that is fully, again, fully automated, fully optimized, focus on those subjects, focus on that, and we see ourselves having little less space to
Yeah.
be silent for just a minute. There's a lot of noise out there,
Yeah.
and it's hard having a conversation with yourself. It's if the noise it's
Yeah.
around. AI is just one of the many tools
Yeah.
that it's in the toolbox right
Yeah.
now for everybody to use, and that's okay. But what we need to understand is that we need to actually start paying attention to the life that we're living and how we're living in the minutes of silence that we need, because otherwise we're not going to be able to actually be present in the world.
yeah,
Like you need to be present in your life, and if you don't have the need for creativity in your life, you're gonna start feeling off put,
yeah,
like odd, odd. And one of the ways that you have to start recovering that function, that transcendent function,
yeah,
it will be to make something with your creative energy. That could be
yeah,
writing, that could be painting, that could be dancing, that could be speaking, that could be whatever you want. But it needs to create, which brings me to
yeah,
another thing. No, the creator economy, and nothing wrong with that. But now people think that if you create something, you need to put it out there and show it to the world and make money of it, and get
yeah,
sponsors and put a YouTube channel, and all those things are fine.
yeah,
But you also need a space that is for you,
yeah.
a sacred space for you.
I think it's safe to say that most of the time we do things that we don't even know why we're doing them, to the point that we feel automated, even
Right.
stuck. How can how can journaling, or even just the simple function of just sitting down and not doing anything and not listening to anything, how could that actually help someone? In just the basic, on just the things that they're doing in their lives.
It comes from the principle of paying attention. Like we do things autonomous, like a robot, because we understand what is the how can I say this? What is the path from A to B?
Yeah,
Like we know it's sending an email, we know it's calling the phone, we know it's checking Instagram or TikTok or whatever, watching a video, talking with ChatGPT or whatever. But if we pause for, for one moment and start paying attention to our life, to what we're doing, to what we are not doing,
yeah,
uh, because maybe we have a list of things that were important for us, but we got caught off in life. You
yeah,
know, it's super easy to get caught off in life. I think that everybody has experienced that at some point,
yeah,
and if you start paying attention, you start to understand where you are leaking energy, where you're putting effort that you don't need to put, and recover that. So
yeah,
take that away from where you put it, and start doing something else with that. And
yeah,
and that something else could be, for sure, it could be a new business. It could be a new business. It could be a new career. It could be a new project. It could be a lot of business like stuff. It can be a lot of new development. It can be a new startup, whatever you want. But it could also be a space where you recover from all those things.
yeah. There's also a part of vulnerability when you're writing. How important is that?
100%. Like, no, again, nobody's going to read it. Why would you refrain yourself from writing or putting something that only you are
Yeah,
going to read, that you're going to reconnect? And the most important thing about that is that, let's say, so John, let's say that today you write a line. You put the date, right?
yeah,
Today's date, and you just write a line that says, I don't like that I haven't done this.
yeah,
And you just close the notepad, and you commit yourself to journaling or to whatever practice that you need to do in order to reach that thing that you need to make. And it takes you 6 months,
yeah,
right? And you made that thing. Or maybe you didn't reach your goal. You changed the goal. You find out that that wasn't actually the goal that you wanted. You wanted something else. But you take a step back and take the notebook and read what you didn't want, or
yeah,
what you recognized uh, 6 months ago, and that's gonna be echo from you. it's gonna point out how much effort you have done in your life, if any.
Yeah.
And it feels very rewarding, incredible rewarding, seeing that something that troubled you, that kept you away from yourself, that tormented you, after 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, whatever, you can say, hey, I made it. Hey, I was feeling this way. I was thinking about this, and look at me now. So that, that immediately
Yeah.
is gonna be like, it's gonna straight up your life.
You know, I actually used to journal. I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I used to drive my motorcycle, go into this hill, and I just go to the top of it, and it's just pure grass and just overlook the whole city. And it's a good feeling. It just stops the time.
It stops the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It stops the time.
The only reason I stopped doing that was because I got into a motorcycle accident, so I don't ride it anymore. So yeah, it's very far to walk to, so I don't go there anymore.
Wow, that's a story there, and you believe that maybe that is connected to why you stopped journaling as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's funny when I was riding my motorcycle about 80 kilometer per hour. I think it's around 30 miles. In term if we do it in miles, and when I slide, because I slide, the motorcycle just went, and I was sliding because I was going so fast, and I was sliding for a few seconds. I don't feel anything. I didn't feel like I was sliding. I just felt that I was the eye. I was seeing what's happening, and it's it's nothing. I can't do anything. I can think about it. Just the
Let it happen.
perspective. Yeah, it's happening right now, and nothing else is happening, and it's hard to explain because I think the whole world stops, and it's just you looking at a person that's just sliding, and you can't even think that that's you. Just see it as a perspective.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And where you have to go to recuperation, physical recuperation, or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's nothing. It's just light, so it's just some scrapes. It's nothing major, but
Okay,
yeah,
it was nothing
it's
major.
odd
Right.
because when I was sliding, that's just a few seconds, but it felt like it lasted for a
Right.
long time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's like you're watching yourself in VR. You're watching a vision, but
Right.
it's not you. It's not you know. It's hard to explain. It's fascinating. I think everyone should go ride the motorcycle and crash it, just to get
Right.
to know the feeling. But yeah,
Right. 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 Well, I'm glad that it was nothing major.
yeah,
That's for sure. It's a blessing. But let's say that that was a particularly stressful event for you, and it actually, from what I'm gathering, it stops you from maybe going to a place where you
yeah.
could feel the time stops, and you could write about whatever you wanted to write. So, mm, why don't you just, um, what what would you write to yourself about that day? That will be a good prompt for me,
Hmm.
like a letter or something. And that's what I love about journaling. You could get so creative.
Yeah,
Like if a colleague of mine came the other day, we were talking, and he told me, "Oh, I'm so frustrated because I really feel like for the past uh, for the past year I wasn't able to, achieve these things,
yeah,
and I wanted these projects to go well, and it didn't happen. I'm really pissed off, and all those things. And I know him from a very long time. I was like, you have like really accomplished a lot in the past 3 years of your life. Like, it's no small thing. And he said, I don't really think so. I said, okay, let's do something. Why won't you write a letter to yourself from 5 years ago? Just catch up,
huh,
and tell him what you have done, where you have failed, and what things are good in your life and where things are suck in your life right now. What you change? What just write a letter. And he was like, and then write back to yourself. Like if you are from 5 years ago, write back, reply to that letter. And he did that. And he came and said, that was the most, he said in Spanish, I have to translate it, but will be something like, that was the most profound conversation that I had to myself, and I cannot believe how much I have grown. And his testimonial was that the thing that put him on perspective was he replying back to him with something like, "Oh my God, we made all those things! Whoa!" Like,
Do,
right?
do you think it gives you confidence because maybe you're just looking at yourself from what you didn't do for the past year, but when you compare it to what you've done for the past 5 years, it's actually not that bad. So do you think that gives you confidence to actually, hey, you didn't know how to do this, but you actually learned it. So why not just learn the new thing that you want to do?
Right. For sure. And one of the things that is one of the things that generally do it's a time machine in so many levels. Not only that, if you could have a 15-minute conversation with yourself in a moment in your past that you are down,
Yeah,
what will you tell yourself? That like, hey, it's horrible right now, but because of this, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. Like
yeah,
you will, that will comfort you immediately, right? If you hear that from yourself, and you could do that with journaling. Like you could start doing this trick to your mind where you connect, right? You reconnect with
yeah.
something.
Do you think it could be written in such a way, the first letter to say, hey, actually, hey, John, you did these things, but you wanted to do these things, but you didn't do them because you were scared. And then the reply was, hey, you actually did a lot of things. So why are you scared now?
That could be actually
Yeah,
a way to do it. What I will do is, hey, John, just to let you know, I'm writing you from this state, and we have accomplished this and that, and we know we haven't accomplished this that we also wanted, but we haven't accomplished because this and that, and now I'm thinking about doing this. And what do you think, or what do you feel, or take a chill pill. We're gonna be fine, and just reply back whatever comes to your mind.
should there
Uh,
be a time difference on when you write these letters? Maybe write the first letter a few hours earlier or a few days.
I will recommend to wait for a day for
Yeah.
sure, like for sure.
And also, when you start journaling, especially because it's a practice and you actually need to build that practice as hobby, I think many people face a ego-driven tendency to write themselves, with judgment or fear, imperfection. They're scared to write because they think that, maybe I will write it in a wrong way. How should someone actually break those walls?
There is no wrong way to do it. That's what I love. Like you cannot do what maybe you should avoid. It's ruminate on the same subject. That
Yeah,
that won't help you. So this comes as well from the Pennebaker study that we were just talking about. The study goes that they give two group of students a traumatic event.
yeah,
Like you need to write about something that is or traumatic for you or really stressful, and you need to document how you're feeling, like your physical health, your mental well-being, and a lot of other indicators.
yeah,
The first group were given the command of trying to focus on something positive after writing what they wrote.
yeah,
Okay, and the second group, the line was to keep it negative.
yeah,
Okay, and like make an effort to keep it negative. So and ruminate about it. So what they found out is that the first group that did journaling, the way you actually do it, because you start seeing positive on things, they got better health, fewer visits to the doctor, a better well-being state, and improvement overall in their life and their health. While the second group got sicker and worse overall. So what I will do is that if I found myself ruminating on the same things for, let's say, 3 days, if I do it daily, or 3 sessions, if I do it spontaneously, I will immediately ask myself, why is this so present in my life?
Yeah.
And maybe it's something hard. I don't want to diminish this. Maybe you experience like, because people maybe believe that journaling it's like a teenager practice.
Yeah, yeah. I think some
Yeah,
people
like
think it's a soft thing to do.
dear diary.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way. But let's say that I don't know, you were in a car accident,
Yeah.
or a motorcycle accident, and maybe it was a little bit major, okay, and that
Yeah.
have had repercussions in your life. So of course you're gonna ruminate on that.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna it's gonna thought otherwise. But maybe knowing that there is a very important subject in your life, start dismantling this episode of your life in pieces and see what echoes come from that. Like, uh, yes, this was horrible and put me maybe in the hospital. But my mother came to visit every day, and I haven't maybe seen my mother in a long time. And I got the chance to reconnect with her. I got the chance to talk with her about stuff that maybe, so that was a
Yeah.
good thing. For
I don't think I've told anyone this. I don't. I've never thought of that motorcycle incident as something that I don't want to happen again. I kind of missed it.
okay,
I don't know. Yeah, yeah, I miss it because when you're facing, I think just even just a small chance of death, it's just you.
right,
Yeah, and yeah,
right.
it's another feeling, which is a odd thing to say. I don't know.
No, that is a very interesting thing to say. Uh, yeah, for sure. Like it
Yeah,
put those. I was actually, I have two heart surgeries in my life.
really.
Yeah, one when I was 9 days born,
Yeah,
and the other one when I was 14 years old.
yeah,
And, and when I was 14 years old, that was a recurring subject in my mind. Of course, how could it be not? And I think that when you go through those kind of scenarios, you put yourself in, you put a lot of things in perspective. Of course, I was a teenager, so there are a lot of things that I
yeah,
didn't know that I know now, that I know now. But that episode always has helped me to appreciate that
yeah,
everything could change in a second. So I
yeah,
better pay attention. And we all get cut off in life, like I was saying. It's completely normal. But if we have any tool, any memory, any experience, any event that remind us that the next second everything could change, for the good, for the worse, for whatever, but the next second everything could change. And that the only thing that we control is ourselves, our relationship with ourselves,
yeah,
the way we talk with ourselves, and that project out in the world
yeah,
unconsciously, but it projects out in the world.
yeah,
That is a way to live life differently. That is a way to stop being prey to the external world and start living in the world.
Yeah. And I think people, especially, we know that we have an inner voice. But, is there even a difference between the voice of the ego versus the voice of the soul?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. There's a lot of difference. Like ego wants to remain. So here's the thing with ego, right?
Remain.
So here's the thing with ego. There's a huge difference. The ego wants to remain as it is. It
Huh.
is it is the nature of this will be according to depth psychologists, right?
Yeah.
So the ego wants to protect you. That is the job of the ego. Let's say, like it wants to make sure that you are you because it works, it survives.
Yeah.
You have a relationship with the world. You have a conception of yourself. You have accomplished things, so it works. So it wants you to put yourself in that frame. The ego, according to this school of psychology, we could say, is a complex though, because what is a complex? Something a system, a way in where you are framed in that way, and you cannot do or perceive yourself
Yeah.
out of that frame. So again, using the subject that we use in another example,
Yes.
you think yourself a very tech savvy, and maybe somebody comes and say, you're not that tech savvy.
Yeah.
You're if you are very extroverted, how can you say this in English? Extrovert, extrovertido,
Yeah.
extrovert. If you're an
Yeah.
extrovert person, you're gonna get mad and you're gonna let them know.
Yeah.
And if you're more introvert, maybe you get mad, but you're not gonna let them know, but you're gonna get mad still. So, and that is the ego, right? The ego is like, no, no, I'm the most tech savvy person in this room. How can you say
Yeah.
that to me? And it doesn't. It's a complex. It won't let
Doesn't
people
allow other people's opinion.
right.
Yeah.
But if you're a bit more flexible, you're like, okay, maybe I'm lucky. Like we all have ego, and one of the functions of the ego is not losing contact with reality, right?
Yeah.
Like, like being in reality, like knowing who you are, knowing what you're doing, being the soul, the psyche, which is the word soul. Psyche means soul in Greek. The psyche, it has another voice. It has a connection with your unconscious and with the collective unconscious to that matter. So it has a connection with something that is the self.
Yeah.
Okay, and that self is your transcendent function.
Yeah.
Something that really connects you with what is true. So it wants different things from you. And I don't know if you have ever
Yeah.
experienced this in life, but have you found yourself doing something that or planning something, and you're just gonna, well, I'm gonna do it this way and this way and this way, and it
Yeah.
just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And when you go to the person, hey, how did you make a podcast? No, it's very easy. I just bought a mic and put
Yeah.
myself out there and started writing a lot of emails, and people get into my interview queue, and now I have a producer and a YouTube channel and whatever. You're like, I've been doing that a lot. It just doesn't work for me. What I find myself self with self sabotage. I find myself not doing the scripts. I find myself like not doing a lot of stuff that I know I have to do. But you're saying that it's easy for me. It's painful,
Yeah.
and that is the psyche. Like, you're not really, you
Yeah.
know, connected with this. As you think you are connected with this, but you're not connected with this. Maybe you're connected with producing podcasts. And when you
Yeah.
try to, I'm oversimplifying this for the example sakes, but and when you
Yeah.
start doing that, you find it easier.
yeah.
And Joseph Campbell, the mythologist and the writer, have this phrase that I hid for a long time,
Yeah.
that it, until I got it. They say, when you follow your bliss, all the doors get to open. And
When you what? When you follow your
your bliss, your blessing,
bliss. Yeah.
yes, your the doors get to open. And I have experienced myself thinking that I know my bliss. You know, like, oh my God, I'm so good at this, and I have a profound connection with this, and I want to do it, and getting all the doors shut down in my face.
Yeah.
And the moment that I connect with something that is more aligned
Yeah.
with the soul psyche, those door gets open. Like it's a very hard to explain experience, but it's a very truthful experience.
I think have you read the book of Dostoevsky, The Notes from the Underground?
I have not. I I have a funny story with Dr. Yeski.
Yeah. Well,
My
I think it's a representation of just the most egoistical man that you'll ever read about, because he just stays in his room. And his
right,
ego,
right. That's
yeah,
a beautiful image.
yeah,
That is it's a great example. That
yeah,
is what they do.
yeah.
Like
As long as he doesn't leave that room, he is that man.
exactly. And that room, like if you put it in the way that you need a room because you need to sleep, because you need to
Yeah,
rest, because you need to be in a space that is for yourself. That is the ego, right? You need the ego. You need that. But as long as you don't leave that room, you're not gonna find out the world.
yeah,
And it's the same. I have read uh, the brothers. I forgot the title. I'm gonna look so bad by not remembering this. Brother Kamerovs, I want to say.
Karamazov.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So I like my family read a lot of Russian literature, like a lot of Dostoevsky,
yeah,
uh, because they came from Cuba. So it was their high school subjects, and I really have tried, but what I find myself with Dostoevsky is I am really very angry about how these characters are so egocentric,
yeah,
egocentric. It's like, my God, we're so simple. Like, what are you? And and I think that's a good reaction because I find myself then, you know, that's a projection, and I probably will
yeah.
like there is an aspect
He
of my
writes
life.
good, to the point that you actually are pissed of that character.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right. And what you have to wonder about yourself is there is an aspect of my life that
yeah,
I act out as this character,
yeah,
and it pisses me off,
yeah,
and I need to change that.
yeah. You only
I
get
need to,
insulted by the things that are actually real.
for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. Comes journaling. Like if you start writing things down, you're gonna find yourself eventually talking about the things that are. Oh, I cannot believe I'm saying this, because otherwise you wouldn't say it out loud. So
yeah,
you need to create a space where you can actually deal with that.
yeah. I think I'm not sure, but from what I've heard, if we have a voice of the soul and voice of the ego, the voice of the soul could probably be Marcus Aurelius, because he always tries to remove his ego, and the voice
Okay,
of the ego is Alexander the Great, because his mother told him when he was birthed that he was actually the son of a god.
that is a good image. That for sure. There is a good image. And I will use your. I'm gathering my thoughts here. We as human beings have been recording our life since the dawn of our species. Like, if you think about the paintings in the cave as a
Yeah,
way to understand the world around you, you are gonna find out if you read somebody like Eric Newman in his book History and Origins of Consciousness, that there has always been this instinct of trying to make
yeah,
sense of the world
yeah,
through rituals, through observation of the stars. Like
yeah,
there is this myth, right? So when you look at myths, right, in folklore tales or fairy tales, you see a way to we express this order of nature, right? And Greek heroes, which is the image that we have
Yeah.
about heroes, they are sometimes very shady characters. And one example that occurs to me, it's Theseus. Well, I don't really know how in English will be Theseus,
Yeah.
Teseo, and Ariadne, the Minotaur and the labyrinth, and Ariadne falls in love with
Yeah.
him, and Ariadne gives him this gold thread that helps him navigate the labyrinth, and he kills the Minotaur, and it takes Ariadne. But after that, he gets bored of her and just leave her in an island. That's not
Huh.
very heroic.
Yeah.
It's not very heroic. But that perception of the hero that killed the Minotaur that we maybe have in our life, and we don't see like somebody that could left a lady
Yes.
abandoned, basically.
Yeah.
That's ego.
Yeah.
The psyche will say, well, if I act out this character that is clever and can navigate the labyrinth, that it has a good relationship
Yeah.
with the feminine and can make her fall in love, and it helps me out, if I can fight the monster within and defeat it, those are good things. But maybe I'm also the kind of person that will leave somebody behind, and that is true. That is authentic. If
Yeah.
I can have this conversation with myself that I have this shadow, right,
Yeah.
that sometimes show aspects of myself that I don't like, I get the chance to circumvent a conversation with that, and maybe stop in that hero complex, and use it for something, but a step to another thing when I need to have this relationship with the other, right?
Yeah.
And the only way I can get to that, it's being again honest,
Yeah.
and honest takes effort. And again, I'm gonna use these June quotes that I love. Consciousness comes from pain. Like if you are not willing to be private with yourself, and speak about the things that are true for you, the good, the bad, or the ugly, it's hard for you to get a clear path of who you are.
It's
And a lot of
actually,
people,
yeah. It's actually important to go to the pain.
yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, um, they are in business environments, and they tell you, and maybe they are founders or startup CEOs or whatever, and they create something, and maybe it's something very unique, or very um, innovator. It's something, they're innovators, and they just change the game, right?
Yeah.
But then comes the company, and comes the shareholders, and comes the team, and comes the new developers, and comes the chief of financial, and comes the
Yeah.
the seed, and the BCs, and everything. And sometimes they found themselves like disinflated,
Yeah.
like they don't have room anymore, because they knew one about themselves. They knew, or herself. They knew that they wanted to accomplish something, and they accomplished it. And now they're like,
What do I
what
do?
what do I do? What do I do with that? This is so when you start having a conversation with yourself about why you did what you did, why you had the need to create
Yeah.
that thing that you create, that a lot of people love, that a lot of people need, you can reconnect with a purpose. Because Maybe you did something because you wanted to make people's life easier by creating whatever you create. And if you tap to that resource, you can always come back to it and say, okay, how can I build upon this, the purpose that I had, that made me create this, instead of
Yeah.
going dry and going soulless.
Yeah. Didn't even notice the time. We're almost out.
Okay.
Since we're nearing the end of the podcast, what books would you recommend to anyone who's listening? Maybe they want to explore themselves more. What books are those?
So I will recommend any. There's a book called Write It Down by James Penbaker about the way that writing helps you. Like, what I like about the book is it's not a recipe, it's a testimonial. It's this is what I find out. So
Yeah.
it gives a little courage to people to start doing those things. If you are more prompt centric, I would recommend two books. One being a Stoic Journal. I forget the name of the author right now, but it's a very good introduction to Stoicism that actually have 90 days of journaling exercises,
Yeah.
right? And it has a lot of good questions, and it's very good. One of that is also good if you're more maybe creative and artistic is
Yeah.
The Artist's Way, which is a book that helps you connect with your creative energy and has a lot of prompts for journaling.
Yeah.
But one book that I'm particularly passionate about right now, that it's not necessarily about journaling.
Yeah.
It's not about journaling, actually. It's called Saturn's Shadow, The Healing of the Wounding of Man by James Hollis. Why? Because, like I say, we think that journaling is a tool that is a little more of dear diary, and men sometimes we disconnect with
Yeah.
something that is not more physical or more adventurous. But what I find out about that book is actually open out about what we as men experience. And one mind blowing thing for me is that the book it's written, I believe, in the early '90s or the '80s, and a lot of what he talks about it still applies, and
Yeah.
that for me is mind blowing. So I think that anybody that read that book and write down their experience while reading the book are going to find gems, hidden gems about themselves. Even if you're a woman, it will really help you understand what we as men, or
Yeah.
maybe somebody that has a little more of masculine energy, uh, what is our frame, why we think the things that we think, and how we move, and our fears. And it's a very powerful book. I really couldn't recommend it.
And if someone's interested in the work of Carl Jung, what first book would you recommend?
Whoa. I will have to say, that's a good question. The answer will be Man and His Symbol. And the answer will be Man and His Symbols, because uh, that was the last book that Jung wrote. And it has a really interesting story. It was a journalist that saw an interview from Jung in a TV channel, and he was like, "Why is nobody talking about him?" And he came to Jung and say, "Why don't we write something a little bit more designed to appeal the masses?"
Yeah.
And at first, Jung was like, "I don't." I'm not quite sure. I don't think
Yeah.
so. I have my my little group of people that are doing what they're doing and don't need the recognition or something like that. But he later had a dream that involved seeing a tree with a lot of fruits. It was something that it kept giving. So he was like, okay, if I do this, this is gonna be the. I'm not gonna say the legacy, but I don't pretend to know what June thought about it. But
Yeah.
then he called the journalist and say like, let's do it. So it contains basically the work of Jung and how he thought, and a lot of people that were involved with his life also are written in that book, like Marie-Lou Bonfrance and Jacobi, which is the second book that I would recommend.
Yeah.
That's called The Psychology of Carl Gustav Jung by this author called Jacobi, in which she explains what was Jung doing and in his patterns and his models, and it's a very easy book to get to know Jungian thought. And I will have to recommend Ira Progoff journaling workshop book. Ira Progoff, he's very deeply influenced by depth psychology, and he has a method called intense journal. It's amazing. It's really amazing. I don't think that it's easier.
Yeah.
It's easier to get to it. But if you're the kind of person that is more symbolic with symbolic thoughts, it will be easier for you. If you're not that kind of person, maybe start writing with some prompts and get to start doing the work in the routine in order to get accommodated into the practice and then jump into Ira. But Progoff, it's amazing. His way of doing journaling, it's really amazing. I could actually tell you that I had a very difficult decision
Yeah.
to make a few weeks ago, and I found myself being like really anxious about it, and I say like, okay, I'm gonna try the Progov method, and I know the method, right? So I
Yeah.
know what I'm gonna do. I'm consciously knowing the steps I'm gonna take, but I find out after I wrote what I wrote that what I thought, like conscious thought, it was very different of what I was feeling and getting from that experience.
Yeah.
And I was amazed by it. It was like, I don't have nothing to worry about. Like, I'm putting here
Yeah.
my actual feelings about it. And I have all these structures and ego voice and justifications, but the images that comes to me from me are telling me otherwise. And I need to assemble this puzzle in a very different way. That's what journaling do to you. Like you get a dictionary to translate your inner voice.
And since we're nearing the end of the podcast, what advice would you give to people, just generally about life?
Be yourself. The world is gonna ask who you are, and if you don't know, it's gonna tell you. Carl Jung. Be yourself.
Who wrote that again? I think
You. Carl Jung.
that's good. That's good. And do you have any last message? And yeah, where can people find you?
Okay, so my handles in social media is escribe y transforma, which will translate to write and transform. I'm doing my practice in Spanish, but if anybody wants to DM me and be curious about this, and just ask some questions that maybe come from this, for sure, I will be happy to help them out. I'm also very more approachable on English on LinkedIn, which you can find me from my name, Johann Toirac, or Johann Sebastian Toirac. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to talk to you in your audience.
And thank you for being on the podcast as well. That's all for today's episode of the New World Podcast. We have explored some fascinating topics with our amazing guests, shedding light on the upcoming New World. If you enjoyed today's episode and today's discussion and want to stay updated the future episodes, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to the podcast. And if you found value on what we have discussed, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, or if you are interested in being a guest in the future, please feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or email me at john.paul@aicinix.com and add New World Podcast, all capital, in the subject line so I can see it. I always love hearing from our listeners. And don't forget to check out our amazing guests. You can find more information about them via the contact details we provided earlier. Again, thank you for tuning in on the New World Podcast. I know your time is very important and I try to always make the next episode better than the last. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, keep innovating. This is John Paul Flores signing off from the New World Podcast.